Color temperature isn't just a technical function to make a pleasing looking image. Knowing how it works can inform the feelings you want to convey in your scene, and how your audience perceives them. Knowing how to use color temperature in your image can be broken down into 3 different approaches: recreation, modification, and exaggeration. And by breaking these ideas down into different times of day, we can simplify the process of deciding how a scene should look. The Kelvin scale shows us average colour temperatures emitted by the light sources we're most familiar with. But it's not as simple as selecting just one of these temperatures to use in an image. There's more to midday sunlight, for example, than a single temperature. The sun, a white light, is surrounded by blue sky. This is caused by the Earth's atmosphere scattering blue and violet waves from the sunlight. And you can see the effect of the blue sky wherever the sun is blocked, in the shadows. On the Kelvin scale, this can be anywhere from 8,000 Kelvin upwards, depending on weather conditions and time of day. With this in mind, we now know how to make this midday sunlight more realistic, by layering some cooler sky underneath it. For this cooler sky, we used a 4x4 frame with some bleached muslin material attached, raised above our window, and fired a Forza 60C 55-degree reflector attached into it, set to 9,000 Kelvin. For our sun, we used a Forza 500B2 with its compatible Fresnel attachment, raised up above the window at a steep angle to mimic the height of a midday sun, set to 5,600 Kelvin. To further this realism we're trying to capture, we could also add some more light to represent the sun hitting elements outside of the window, the ground especially. So we set up a 720B with its 55-degree reflector dish and bounced it from the wooden decking outside of the window. Much like how the real sun at the angle of our 500B would be interacting with the environment. With knowledge of colour temperature at our disposal, we can determine a time of day to present the mood or feelings we want a scene to convey, whilst providing a sense of realism to the image. But what if we don't want to be bound quite so tightly by the laws of nature? First, we need to take a look at sunrise, or sunset. At sunrise and sunset, sunlight has to travel through more atmosphere to reach us, so even more rays are scattered, giving us the warmer temperatures found at these times of day. However, you'll still find a lot of blue in the sky furthest away from the sun. The sun is slightly dimmer, and the blue in the sky is darker and more saturated. You may see more vivid colour contrasts at these times. Here, we've used colour temperature to recreate sunset, realistic to our location. When real sunset falls into this room, we only really see the warmer elements of sunlight affecting the space, the sun itself, the warmer sky near the sun, and bounce from reflective surfaces outdoors. Any cooler colour cast from the blue sky has very little effect due to it being primarily above and at the back of the house. Combined with the decor of warmer walls, bouncing the warm evening sun around the room, we have a relatively monotone, warm temperature throughout the space. So when it came to recreating this light, we just needed to focus on 3 elements: the sun, the sky and outside elements reflecting the sun, and the resulting bounce light around the room. We did this with a Forza 500B2, Fresnel attached, firing in through the window, set to a colour temperature approximating the sun's at this time of day, 3200 Kelvin. For the surrounding sky and outdoor bounce, we set up a 6x6 frame of bleached muslin with a Forza 720B 55-degree reflector dish attached, shooting through it, set to 3200 Kelvin also. For the indoor bounce light, we simply bounced a Forza 60C from a sheet of bleached muslin material, set to a slightly cooler colour temperature of 4200 Kelvin. We decided to cool this fill light down a little, just so our image isn't too flat, colour-wise. So far, we've shown 2 examples where colour temperature has been used in a strict, realistic way. But in cinema, light is often used to bend realism to our will, to create moods we might not be able to capture using only natural light. And since we've recreated natural light once again, we have the tools to tweak it to our benefit, and even a subtle change can give our scene a different feeling or meaning. We simply changed the colour temperature of our bounced ambience, cooling it right down to 20,000 Kelvin. In doing this, we've allowed our audience to subconsciously feel a closer emotional pull to darker and sadder feelings, as opposed to our more realistic temperature balance, which might not feel so melancholy. And although the combination, quality, and positioning of these 2 different colour temperatures are something we may never find naturally in this particular room, we know these temperatures can naturally exist together outside of it, so we've simply borrowed a piece of reality to create our own. So what if we took this a step further, using realistic colour temperatures, but putting them in an exaggerated situation we would never see with our own eyes? Moonlight is actually found at around 4000 Kelvin on the Kelvin scale, though we may recognise it as a much cooler colour. This is because moonlight is a byproduct of sunlight, reflected from the moon's greyish surface, making it about 400,000 times dimmer than sunlight. And being so dark, the light receptors in our eyes shift to a different type of cell to adapt, one that only picks up the blue end of the colour spectrum. With this information, we can start to understand why this setup feels a little exaggerated. A typical warm household bulb can generally be between 2700 and 3200 Kelvin. So, we'll start with a table lamp, a Pavobulb 10C inside. Set to 2700 Kelvin. We need exposure and shape on the face, so we set up a Pavoslim 120C to the character's right, with its softbox and grid. Set to the same colour temperature as our bulb, at 2700 Kelvin. In reality, our lamp would likely be lighting more of the face and room, so we also set up a Pavoslim 240C, softbox attached. This is also set to 2700 Kelvin to complete the motivated light from the lamp. Now, we could start adding warm accent or backlights into the image to complete the look of a nighttime interior, but we're going to opt for something more stylistic. We used a Forza FC60B with the compatible PJ-FZ60 projection attachment, directed into a concentrated, hard light through the window door in the background and onto the back wall. This light is set to 6500 Kelvin, creating a warm, cool colour contrast in the image, and representing how moonlight looks to our eyes. To tie this moonlight into the image a little better, we added another Pavoslim 120C, softbox and grid attached to our character's left and slightly behind. Also set to 6500 Kelvin, this gives us a subtle edge light, blending the moonlight into the scene a little more, making the image feel more real. But what's real about this image? The reason we perceive moonlight as blue is because it's so dark, which means in reality, We generally don't see lamplight and moonlight together. It's either one or the other. So, this could be seen as a failure to light the scene naturally, but we're not always trying to recreate reality perfectly in an image. Recreating reality is just one option to capture the emotions we might want to instill with our image. And if these color temperatures don't carry the mood we want to convey, we can modify them. Or we can exaggerate them to really push the ideas and feelings of the scene or story. In every instance, we've borrowed from reality to create our own. And that's the essence of lighting for cinema. Recreating, modifying, and exaggerating what we see every day to convey feelings and emotions in a visual capacity. And color temperature is just one way that we can do this.